We have here the Mambasnake M82HE, which is a magnetic keyboard with all features you'll be looking for from Hall effect switches, but with the capability of mixing and matching switches. This is compatible with Outemu, Gatorons, and TTC magnetic switches to name a few, and this is the second keyboard that I've ever reviewed that is able to mix and match switches. So apparently, some gamers want light switches on WASD or even shift or control, so this will accommodate that feature some gamers are looking for. Before we get ahead of ourselves, my name is Daniel with the Biboyharanero team, and we've been reviewing keyboards, mice, and audio gear for gamers since 2019. So consider subscribing so you're always updated with our new videos and product releases. Anyhow, if it isn't already obvious, this is a hot swap magnetic keyboard, so freely replace the switches if you want to. However, I think the Outemu switches already pre-installed is pretty decent. It's got approximately 45-gram springs within, which I think is just a perfect balance for gaming and typing. Speaking of gaming, I did test this out in-game and it performed the way magnetic keyboards should. This has overkill specs of 8000 Hz and a scan rate advertised at 128,000 Hz. Sadly, I do not have the tech to measure this, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I used this for gaming, felt no delay, and felt really snappy, especially at 0.5 mils of actuation distance. Now, this does have rapid trigger technology, allowing you to reset the button and reactuate superbly fast. Moving on, I like that the layout of the keyboard is 75%, allowing you more space for mouse movements. The only thing I didn't entirely like about the keyboard is the expected tray-mounted structure. This is a hit and miss, allowing for more accurate actuation point reading at the cost of taking out the bassy thok. We'll go over this in more detail later on, but let's first check out the software. So upon opening the software, you will be greeted by the key binding settings right here in the main tab. There's a sub tab here which you could have further customizations for key binding. There's layers right here which you can customize, and I think that's pretty much it for key binding. Next sub tab here in the main tab, we have stroke settings. Here you can toggle select all buttons, and then you could adjust rapid trigger settings right there. Onto the shaft settings, this is where you can select a key and select exactly what switch you have on. So this is compatible with Outemu, with Gatoron switches. I've never heard of Heavenly Kings before, but TTC Magnetos, yep, I've heard of them. Moving on, we have advanced settings right here where you can set up your dynamic keystroke, mod tap, toggle key, or snap tap. And let me set up snap tap here real quick. Really very easy. For key 1, I just selected A, and for key 2, I selected D, and now I have snap tap on A and D. For other settings right here, this is where you do your calibration for your keyboard, which you should regularly do, especially when you swap out the switches. Onto the function settings right here, this is pretty much self-explanatory, basically allowing you to tweak alternate functions on each key. Onto the macro tab, I did record the macro here, and it does detect your mouse clicks, so that's a good plus. The lighting tab here shows the lighting modes, brightness, speed, so on and so forth, pretty much self-explanatory. And then the next tab is share tab, where you could share your keybinds and other settings on your keyboard. You could even download other people's settings from this tab right here. Onto my account, this is where you could log in, register, and save your keyboard settings, which you could export out and import onto another Mambasnake keyboard. And that's pretty much it. Last tab, again, self-explanatory. And let's move on. Onto the box contents, it includes the keyboard, cable, documentation, key puller combo, and a PT anti-dust cover. The anti-dust cover was a good addition, so we add a layer of protection to your keyboard when not in use. It's just not perfectly fitted onto the keyboard, and it's a bit snug. The keyboard itself isn't too heavy. My hands say it's a little bit below average compared to other 75% plastic keyboards, but this does have fully dampened internals, so there are layers of foam to absorb shock, vibrations, and unnecessary rattles. Tapping underneath the keyboard, there's still a level of hollowness, which is understandable and very usual with magnetic keyboards, as fully damping the internals may potentially mess up with the switch magnets in ways I'm not sure how. Though this isn't a guaranteed issue, keyboard companies are just making sure they do not mess things up out of the box. So again, this was expected. Underneath the keyboard, you get rubber anti-slip pads so it doesn't move around your desk. Then it also has a pair of 2-level kick-up feet so you can angle it. The USB-C port is panned to the right side, which is a hit and miss, depending on your PC setup. Personally, I prefer USB-C's pan to the left side so it doesn't mess with my macro pad. And before we move on, I'm not really sure what segment to put this detail on, but at the upper right corner of the keyboard, you get an insert key, which I hope was a print screen button, as I never ever use insert. Just saying. Now, for the best part, this keyboard features cherry profile, PBT double shot, topographic side printed shine through keycaps. That was a lot to say. I like that the light shines through even the topographic marks, and I also love that the legends are easy to see due to to its good size. I personally like side-printed double-shot keycaps with an OEM profile, having a taller keycap height, making legends appear better, but this was done just right even on a cherry profile keycap set. Now for the stabilizers, I still do hear mild rattling on all stabilized keys. Of course, I had to check it out to see what's going on inside and found that the stabilizers aren't perfectly fitted on the positioning plate. This can be easily fixed by adding in some cloth tape on the contact points of the stabilizer and the aluminum positioning plate. Then of course, adding more dielectric grease to smoothen out the ups and downs. It sounded sexy. Kidding, forget I said that. Onto the switches, these are branded Outemu and I couldn't find the exact unit online. They're really tightly placed on the positioning plate, which caused one of the switches to break as I was pulling out one. So be sure you fully retract the switch locks before pulling them out. I found that a dedicated switch puller does the job, while the automatic switch puller doesn't fully retract the locks. Moving on, I had to use my weighing scale and press the switch on top to get an estimate of its spring weight, and I got numbers around 42 grams to 47 grams, so yeah, this is around the 45 gram mark. I personally prefer 40 grams or less, especially for gaming, so you can get faster keystrokes, but 45 grams is also something that I would feel would work, especially for heavy fingers. It's a great balance for typing though, so you don't make a lot of typos. Anyhow, here's how the keyboard sounds. This is offered in 3 colorways, one white with regular-ish keycaps, and a black and white version of the set with topographic shine-through keycaps. I am a fan of topographic designs, especially if it's shine-through. However, it's important to note that this is not minimalist. I also see this as something that will confuse old people's eyes, but that's just a small nitpick. I don't envision grandpas using this keyboard anyways. Also, the keyboard is heavily dependent on RGB. If any of the RGB LEDs fail, you kinda lose the whole point of it being shine through. Anyways, the body of the keyboard doesn't look too masculine thanks to the rounded corners. And above the arrow keys, you will find a lightsaber, which I think is cool. You may toggle the lightsaber modes with function key and caps lock. Then with the function key and backslash, you can cycle through the RGB modes of the entire keyboard. Function key and the arrow keys up and down should adjust brightness, so it's pretty easy to get familiar with. Overall, the RGB is really bright and I like it. Freely crank it up to maximum as you're not depleting any batteries. Again, this is a wired keyboard, so yeah, there you have it. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comment section below. My affiliate link is in the description, so check those out to get your Mambasnake M82HE. I'll see you guys again next time.